Hey everyone, welcome back to Barter Hordes. My name is Robert, and as you can tell from the familiar background, I am back home again in North Carolina after my week-long road trip to Texas and back. I went to pick up a dog that I adopted on Sunday, and Bruno G will probably make his appearance in some videos because he doesn't follow commands very well and pretty much does what he wants so far. You want to say hi to the camera? You want to say hi to the camera? Yeah. But he was very good in the car, and I have no complaints so far. He's been pretty adorable. Anyway, today's match day 5, and it's a match between two books that I listened to on audio on the drive to and from Texas. So they're pretty familiar in my memory. The first one is O. William by Elizabeth Strout, and the second one is Torrey Peters' debut novel, Detransition Baby. I've read 2 or 3 by Elizabeth Strout now, and I like her writing style fine. This is the story, the narrator, the main character is Lucy Barton. She's in her 60s. She is a novelist. She has recently lost her second husband. He's died, and she's a little bit devastated by that, but she's coping pretty well. And she's talking to her first husband, William, who is still a friend of hers. They've known each other for a long time now, and so she's kind of still his friend and confidant. They see each other occasionally, even though there's nothing romantic between them. William has just lost his third wife, not from death like Lucy's husband, but his third wife has decided that she can't deal with him being distant any longer, and she has recently left him. And he's feeling fairly devastated because he didn't see it coming. But he's also learned just recently from one of these ancestry websites that he has a half-sister, an older half-sister, that he had no idea was alive, existed. His mother's history is somewhat of a mystery. She didn't talk about it much when she was alive. And so the second half of the book is basically a road trip that William and Lucy take together to his hometown to try to decide if he wants to meet this woman or not, or find out more about it. At first he's in denial. He said, no, there's no such thing. It's all a lie. But then he does some research and finds that she really does exist. And so the second half of the book is their trip to find out more about his past. And so a lot of this book is about how we make sense of our lives as we get older. This is a book about older people, which is a little unusual, to be honest, in American literature. Occasionally you'll get a book about an older person, but not too many. It's a book about making sense of your past. It's a book about what family means, what we thought it meant, and what it might actually mean, things like that. The second book, Detransition Baby, as I mentioned, is Torrey Peters' debut novel. And it's gotten a lot of attention because it deals with a subject that there are very few books about right now, and that is the experience of trans characters. The main character in this one is Reese. I think she's in her 30s, a trans woman. She has been in a relationship, a lesbian relationship, with another trans woman named Amy for a while, but they have split up. And in fact, Amy has now detransitioned. Originally, his name was James. Then she went by Amy when she was transitioning, and then when she transitioned back to a man, she goes by the name of Ames. And they are still in contact a little bit, but it's kind of a hostile contact. Reese feels somewhat betrayed by Ames's detransition. And in fact, she misgenders him regularly because she won't accept the fact that he's detransitioned and is male. She still calls him Amy regularly. It's also about a cis woman named Katrina, who is Ames's boss at an ad agency. And Ames believed that while he was living as a trans woman, the estrogen treatments that he was taking for years had rendered him sterile. And so Ames was surprised to find out that Katrina is pregnant. And so the book is really about the intersection of these three people. And they decide to consider entering a really unusual co-parenting relationship with all three of them, because Reese's greatest wish in life is to be a mother. And so Ames believes that he's not really ready to be a traditional father because he didn't even think he could have children. Katrina does not want to raise a child alone without Ames, and Ames wants to give Reese something that she values, which is a child. And so he proposes that the three of them raise this child together. And so a lot of the book is about them trying to make sense of what family means, what their roles are. But this is a really complicated book, not just because of the change in gender, but there's so much going on in this book. It's the story that I've briefly outlined for you, but it's also kind of a history of what trans people in America have gone through. So there's a political, a gender politics history going on. There's also a lot of political ranting going on, which is completely justified, but it seems like there is a lot of stuff going on in one book. And when it comes down to it, I liked both of these books. I didn't love either of these books. I think I gave, and I'll tell you right now, I chose O. William as my winner for this round. I think I gave it 4 stars in my mind, and I gave Detransition Baby 3 stars. And part of it is simply because I think the writing is better in O. William. It's tighter, the prose is cleaner. The big problem I had with Detransition Baby is I think Peters is trying to put too many different elements into a single novel. The political history, it's half of the book is a psychology textbook. And when it comes down to it, as far as the story goes, Reese is not a very sympathetic character. She is completely self-absorbed and mistreats everyone close to her, especially James, Amy, Ames. She betrays Amy. She mistreats Ames. She's not particularly likable when she meets Katrina, and Katrina accepts her anyway. She's just not a very likable character, and that's fine. You don't have to be a likable character, but it's hard to have sympathy for what she's claiming as victimhood when she has victimized the people around her. And so I didn't really take to Reese as a character. I felt much more sympathy with Katrina and with Ames because they at least acknowledged their shortcomings and their biases and prejudices and blindnesses. Reese just didn't very often. So when it came down to it, I ended up choosing O. William as my favorite because I just think the writing is better. But as far as story goes, I really thought they were both fascinating stories. One about senior citizens, one about trans people. It was a really interesting matchup. I wouldn't say I'd put either of these books in my favorites, but I'm glad I read both of them. So next match day 6, is between Viet Thanh Nguyen's The Committed, which is a continuation of a previous novel of his, and Maggie Shipstead's Great Circle, which is a historical novel about aviation and Hollywood and several different stories. I have read both of these, and so I'll be going back and reviewing my notes before next Friday's video, and I will talk to you then. Bye, everybody.